If you're watching me right now, you're probably part of my target audience. That was stupid, I'm sorry. VTubers and content creators wanting to know how to fill out a VTuber agency audition form in a way that makes them hireable, that makes people excited and want to hire you. So how do you identify your target audience, and why should you choose that audience specifically? I'm gonna answer those questions for you, so just stick around. Let's start with, what is a target audience? This is the audience that you want to create content for. This may not necessarily be the audience you've already built for yourself because you didn't focus your brand toward that target. You must identify your target audience and the content that they like to consume in order to decide the content you create. You're creating content where the goal is to directly appeal to a specific audience. That said, it doesn't exclude audience outside that audience from enjoying the content too. So how do we start? Where do we start in answering this question? In my last video, I told you all about how you should be researching all of these agencies that you're trying to apply for, and more importantly, seeing what audiences they already have and what they already cater to. You either your audience is totally outside of their existing audience, which makes you very attractive, or you cater to an audience that is pretty similar to their audience, which can also make you very attractive, but you gotta work a little harder to sell that. So first, let's talk about identifying your audience. There's three categories to kind of familiarize yourself with in order to really identify and pin down who your audience is. The first one is psychographic information. This is the interests of the people that you want to target. This is kind of the easiest way to narrow down and scope your target audience because you are a niche creator. So pick a niche and there you go, you have an audience. You can cater your content to that specific niche. It can be a hobby, like cooking, drawing, singing, making music, etc. All kinds of things. Gaming is a pretty common one in streaming. It can be interests, like a specific video game or a specific genre, a specific anime genre. You could maybe be a mythology and lore expert. Not even just in mythology and real shit. Like there's creators out there who their whole stream niche is knowing lore about a specific video game. There's a streamer out there, I don't think it's a streamer, there's a content creator out there named My Name is Bife, and his whole thing is he is an expert on the Destiny series, the Destiny video game series, and he's made a name for himself that when people have anything that they want to talk about with lore, they go to him. That's a way to identify an audience. There's also behavioral niches that you can adopt, like ASMR. There's an entire ASMR community that their whole thing is consuming ASMR content. You can be meditation or satisfying activities like messing around with slime or popping bubbles or reading to your audience or journaling. And then finally, there are also conversational niches. Those are the just chatting streamers like that, and maybe they focus on things like therapy and life advice, or even theories into video games, debates, public or world events. The world is your oyster, is my point being. The next topic, the next big audience information that you need to know is demographics. This is probably the most data-driven of all of these topics. There are certain demographic metrics to keep in mind when you are targeting an audience. One big one is age. This is pretty damn important because if you make content that's racy and inappropriate and you want your audience to include miters, then you have to change your content. You can't make content like that if you want to target minors. Are you targeting millennials, Gen Zers, Gen Xers, boomers? Each of these different generations and age groups have different languages, languages being like slang and shit. Different experiences, different relatability, and it's really difficult but not impossible to target them all, especially the further away you are from a generation. Like if you're a Gen Zer VTuber out there and you're trying to target people that are 50 and older, Good luck. That's all I gotta say. Gender is another uncommon but not necessarily bad thing to consider. Also note that just because your content focuses on a demographic doesn't mean it can't appeal to others, you know? So if there's a channel that focuses on relatable experiences for women as well as people who have vaginas and boobs, people who aren't in those groups can still enjoy that content, you know? It's just your target. It doesn't mean you're excluding people. It means that is who you're catering to. So anybody else along for the ride is perfectly welcome. Race and ethnicity are also demographics that can be approached. This can be a touchy thing here if it's approached poorly. It doesn't mean that a content creator is only, say, for Black people. You know, it could be that the content that that creator makes is very specifically around relatable Black experiences, but as it so happens, non-Black people can enjoy that content too. Like Black Twitter, for example. If anybody's seen Black Twitter, you know that shit's hilarious. You don't have to be Black to enjoy that. It's just an angle. It's an audience to target. And then language is another one. This can be as simple as streaming in a specific language. You know, a lot of these VTuber agency applications say that, hey, if you know multiple languages, that's a huge plus. Use that, and don't just wait for you getting hired onto those agencies to do that. Do that in your content already. You know, that's an audience that you can appeal to. If you speak French, have some streams where you're speaking French to your audience, you know? That is your audience that you need to leverage that, you know? And the more you leverage it, the more real world experience you have in leveraging that. When you put it on your application, the more clout you have, because it's already proven that you are catering to that audience and you can bring that audience to the table. Profession is another really big thing. You know, perhaps you're a mixer for a living and you're a sound engineer and you mix songs, you know, or maybe you're a software engineer for a living and you code. You can cater to an audience of people who have those careers. I even saw a while ago, they were like a VTuber group of software engineers. They were all coders and that was their thing. And their content was all about teaching people how to code. That's fucking content, dude. So, you know, if you've got those skills, break into those skills and leverage them for your content, because there is an audience out there. You know, there's a lot of other demographics that you can leverage, but these seem to be the most useful to me, at least, in identifying an audience to create for without excluding anyone. Finally, the third big pillar in identifying your target audience is geography. You know, it's amazing how many viewers you're gonna get from all over the world. Even in my own stats, the vast majority of my viewers are in the United States, but I also get a lot of viewers from like Japan and the Middle East and Europe and in South America. Like, it's all over the world, you know? And with the world being so big and diverse, it's really important to think about where your audience is tuning in from. If you're playing largely to a Japanese audience, then you need to make sure you're streaming and posting content in Japanese time zones, right? If you're playing to that audience, what the hell are you doing posting stuff in Pacific time or Eastern time? You know, you want to identify where your audience lives so that you can be creating content at the best times possible for those views, so that that audience can have the ease of access to your content. Be conscious also of peak traffic times as well as popular streaming times. If you stream at uncommon times in the day, like super early in the morning or during the work day or school day, you're gonna tap into an audience that is generally unserved due to most streamers being offline in that time. So something to keep in mind. And if you only speak English in your streams, then communicate that to new viewers that are non-English so that they're not spamming your chat with languages you can't understand, you know? Be aware that not every country has the same customs and socially acceptable mannerisms as you do. That said, also be firm with your viewers on what your expectations are. So that is how you identify your audience. The next step is to sell your audience to the reader. At the end of the day, we're applying for a VTuber agency here, right? So you know your audience. Now you need to convince that reader that they want your audience too. So the first case that I want to go over is if your audience is outside of their normal audience, that agency's normal audience that their talents cater to. This sets you apart from the get-go. You know, now you need to convince them that bringing your audience will make them rich. You know, there are a couple of angles that you can, approach this from, but the biggest thing you want to land is your numbers. Your numbers and the numbers of that audience that you still have yet to reach, your potential. So the first angle you can approach is in your answer is talk about the following you've already cultivated. Obviously, if you're a bigger content creator, you're gonna have an easier time with this because you have actual metrics measuring the size of your existing sphere of influence. For smaller content creators, you have to focus more on the impact you've made in the content you've created because you don't have the numbers to back up your following. Maybe you have numbers to back up the content you created. If you have a video or a series of videos on YouTube where your viewership is like abnormally high, you found an audience, bro. That's your audience. You know, look at the various classifications that I mentioned above in identifying that audience, you know, including subject matter of the content, demographics, and geography, and get to know your audience, get to know them better so that you can start catering your content to them. Another really good tip here is if you've identified that audience, YouTube has a lot of analytics for you to look at, and they actually have a whole set of related content. When people click on your content, the other content that they generally click on, or the content that the YouTube algorithm generally recommends after viewing your content or before viewing your content, that is really good information to know because now you can go look at what your competition is doing. You know, if you know there's another VTuber that is in your niche, look at what they're doing, look at what's successful for them, and use that information. You know, I'm not saying go copy what they're doing, do not do that, but I mean, you're both kind of doing the same thing, and something that they're doing is something you're not doing, and it's making them successful. So take a little bit of that success yourself, you know, do your research, and that'll help. That's how you grow. In the meantime, since you don't have time to grow 50,000 followers overnight to audition for a VTuber agency, talk about the audience in your application, you know, that audience that you're targeting. Talk about them and elaborate on the potential, you know, which is the second angle to approaching answering this question. You may not have the follower count to support this, but your content might have the views. Did any of your videos go viral? You know, focus on that. Tell the agency how you connected with that audience and how you will continue to connect with them to attract even more viewership. You don't need to write a whole ass marketing pitch here, but you want to convince your reader that they want to include this new audience into their own sphere of influence. Smaller creators should really focus on the potential of the content they create. You know, show your passion here. Other numbers to show, like, because I gotta say, man, having numbers is huge. You know, numbers is what gets people's sticks hard when it comes to growth, and especially corporations that are trying to decide whether or not they want to hire you. You know, so you can show the size of the audience potential as a whole and not just the audience you pull in with your content. You know, this is where that demographic data comes in. I'm going to do a little case study with you because you can kind of use that information to approximate the size of the audience that you're catering to. And oh gosh, I say approximate with all caps here, man. It is an estimate. You're not going here and telling the agency, I will get you 12 million viewers. No, you're not. But you can use these numbers to inform why a specific audience is worth investing in. So here's the case study. There are about 245 million users of YouTube in the United States. About 12% of the US population is Black. So you can, simple math can estimate that there are around 29 million Black YouTube viewers out there. Now, a quick Google search found one study that claimed that 38% of Black people find anime at least somewhat enjoyable. It was like super favorable or somewhat favorable, and that was 38%. And now we know that there are literal millions, 11 million to be more precise, literal millions of Black anime lovers out there with no Oshi. In a high tier VTuber agency, there are no Oshis that look like them. You know, that's notable. That is notable. It puts in perspective how untapped an audience really is. Even conservatively, even if you don't put the M word out there, millions, even if you don't put that out there, you can still conservatively say there are still hundreds of thousands of potential viewers just waiting to be tapped into. And that's just one example, one demographic that I chose that particularly pertains to me. So get creative with this, man. Identify your audience and get those numbers, man. Put those numbers in your answer because that is attractive. It's sexy. The second case is if your audience overlaps with a lot of that agency's talents' existing audiences. Now, at first glance, this can look like a bad thing, because it can mean that you aren't different enough to justify being hired. But that's not necessarily true. Sharing a similar audience to their existing talents might be exactly what they're looking for. You really never know, because it shows that you would probably fit in well with their vibe. That said, it's always better to still set yourself apart from the crowd, even if initially it seems like you're more of the same. So some differentiators y'all can choose are the type of content you create. Maybe all of their existing talents stream Minecraft, and it just so happens that you really love to stream Minecraft. So think of ways that you can differentiate yourself, make it so that your content is different from theirs. It can be that your content is all about building and recreating scenes from animes on stream, and that's like your thing that you do in Minecraft. That's unique and that's interesting. That would make for good content. A lot of people would watch that. Or maybe your content is like that ADHD content you see on TikTok, where you see that like half the screen is showing some video like that you would normally see on TikTok, and then the other half of the screen is some random shit like bubble popping. That's like supposed to be targeting ADHD people that need a whole bunch of things to look at so that they're less likely to swipe away as quickly. So maybe that's your thing. Maybe you play Minecraft on the top part of that screen, and maybe the rest of the stream is you're just like chatting. It's a just chatting stream, but you're showing Minecraft and you're just talking about random shit, like some topic at length, like world events, life advice, or something creative, like collaborating with your viewers to write a manga. There's a lot that you can do here to even if your content seems like a lot of the same stuff they already have, there's a lot of ways you can make it different. Another way to differentiate yourself when your audience overlaps with the agency's target audience is maybe your vibe is different. You can get really creative with this, like maybe your whole thing is you play cozy games like your gym mates do. Maybe that's like what everybody does, but maybe you are like a total fucking gremlin and you play them chaotically as hell. So it like subverts expectations. And maybe even in your thumbnail, you're saying, oh, we're doing cozy streams. But then as soon as they enter your stream, you're like fucking acting a fool and just fucking causing mass chaos. And that's your thing, making those streams seemingly chill, but they're not chill. You can even lean into a character here. I would say with caution, don't overdo this, because you'll see this advice a lot. If you try to audition with a persona in mind, it's really difficult to keep that persona. Even if you commit to it early on, it's gonna fade away and you're gonna eventually just be yourself. And that may not be why they hired you. So if you're leaning into some character, pull from character traits you already have and just exaggerate them a little bit. For example, my voice unintentionally goes a little sexy sometimes when I get really deep and super smooth like this. I can't really help it. It just happens. And even in non-sexy situations, it happens, and it makes for funny moments or maybe uncomfortably entertaining moments. Like if there is some tendency you do or some habit you have that you do it, lean into it a little bit, because it can give you a little bit of personality that maybe somebody else doesn't have. And it's not necessarily putting on a character, because it really is just you. It's just a slightly more exaggerated version of you. There are probably lots of other ways to differentiate yourself when your audience likely overlaps with the agency's audience, but make sure that when you are doing those differentiators, make sure it makes you look attractive. The whole idea is to pump you up so that they choose you. Talk about your proven track record that you have as a creator, as well as the potential growth that you can bring to the agency in the future, far beyond the audience you already have. Now, after you identify your audience, you want to identify how you want them to feel when consuming your product, consuming your content, and cater your content toward eliciting those feelings. But that's another topic, and we'll talk about that another time. And that is how you answer this question: who is your target audience and why? I hope you guys found this useful, and I will continue uploading videos about this. So leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe and all that jazz, notifications, blah, blah, blah. And I'll get you some more great strategies to use in your application to a VTuber agency. All right, y'all, bye.